But all right, so a quorum being present of both the CIB and Finance Committee. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. And I will do a roll call because actually first thing I'll do is I'll read what we have to read for this, and then we'll do a roll call because that's something we are required to do. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, the meeting will be conducted via remote. This meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so by accessing the town website and opening the agenda for this evening's meeting and clicking on the link to our Zoom meeting. No in-person attendance of members of the or members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in this order. All right, so Chris Berglund is present. Greg Zakarian.
I'm here.
All right, Jason Brockway.
Present.
Great. Mary Foley.
Present.
All right, great. Kalina Archibald.
Present.
All right, and Ray Brookall just joined us. Ray.
Present.
Present. Great. All right. Now we've got everybody. All right, so I'll try to run through the minutes. So Pete was kind enough to circulate the minutes of the April 23rd meeting. And I uploaded those extensive minutes of the workshop task force from both April 10th and April 17th, 2024. They're in the shared folder. And we can take them one at a time. If you want me to open them and share them with everybody, if somebody hasn't seen them, I'm happy to do that. But I'll entertain a motion on whichever sets of minutes you would like to start with.
I make a motion to accept Pete's minutes.
April 23rd, 2024. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I had just one question. He had in there that I think it was the null pad for the school that we didn't vote on it because it wasn't on the agenda, I think is what he wrote. But I thought we actually had already voted on it, and that's why we didn't vote on it last time.
Okay, right.
I meant to go back and see if I could find it, and I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know if we voted on that or not. I think it was just a reappropriation of ARPA funds, wasn't that it? I mean, it was not
Right.
even, yeah.
Right.
Second, okay. Did we vote previously on? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Annulled consulting. Well, I mean, I guess for our purposes, it would be a reappropriation of those funds. I mean, that's really what it would come down to on the ARPA side.
Mhm.
So it's not like, and I don't know that we even have anything to do with it because I think those were appropriated to the school, and I don't know that it would come back to us in any case. But we can leave that off, I guess. I'm not sure how we will go about doing that because I think we did appropriate those funds, or I thought we had.
I'm looking for it now.
Looking at was not voted on because it was not an agenda item. Will be included in the agenda of the next FinCom meeting. Okay, so I guess we'll be voting on it this time. That's what he had in his minutes. So we'll be voting to move it over. I'm not sure that I have that specifically. Oh, reallocation.
That was the second boiler though. that we weren't able to vote on the
Right.
ARPA funds because it wasn't on the agenda. The NALT pad, I thought we had already voted on.
We'll clarify that. So reach out to Pete and clarify. For next meeting. All right, so we will take that have that stricken from these minutes for this evening, and look to have it amended to indicate that I don't know that we voted on that at a previous meeting. I think we may have reviewed it, but I don't believe we voted on the reappropriation. So we'll look at that for a future meeting. A future meeting. Okay. Striking that paragraph. Is everybody in favor of approving those minutes? Do I have a roll call? Greg Zakarian.
Aye.
Great. Ray Burkhalter.
Aye.
Mary Foley.
Aye.
Jason Brockway.
Aye.
All right. Chris Berglund, aye. All right, has everybody had a chance, or I guess have Ray and Greg had a chance to look at the minutes of those two workshops that we had?
Yeah, I'll move the minutes from the April 10th and 17th working group.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chris Berglund, aye. Kalina.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Mary Foley.
I'm not on that committee. Should I vote?
It's up to you. I can't tell you one way or the other.
Committee. I'm gonna abstain.
Mary abstains. Okay. Jason?
Yeah, I'll abstain as well. I am not a part of that committee, I guess. Or, yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. So, well, I think that's it. Greg, I got you, right? Yeah, I think I got Greg and I got Ray. All right. Okay, good.
I don't think I voted on this one, Chris.
You didn't, oh, you made the motion. You didn't vote. Ray Burkhalter.
Aye.
All right. Thanks. Well, these minutes are going to be beautiful, let me tell you. I hope you're keeping track, cleaning. That's all I can say. All right. Second item on the agenda, and we are joined by Chuck Goss, our facilities. What is your title? Facilities personnel. Facilities. All right. Facilities personnel. Chuck Goss is joining us this evening to give us a little insight into two different things. I mean, I guess the first is one of the things that had come up was the library boiler. And I know Pete, I had uploaded Pete's email that he'd sent me pertaining to his discussion with Mike Long over at the library on the library boiler. And I guess, Chuck, the issue that was raised at our last meeting as to whether when it came to reallocating the ARPA funds for the second boiler to do both boilers at once was, why is there no opportunity for any kind of a discount on the second boiler? Because we were told that there was no opportunity for that, and perhaps you could just give us a little explanation as to what. Go ahead.
I don't for the manufacturers, and I don't work for the distributors. Obviously, I don't know what kind of policies they have. To be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I thought myself, you know, you're not going to get 2 for 1, but maybe you get, 10%, 5%, whatever the case may be. Now, I haven't held these contractors' feet to the fire yet to talk to them about this. They just simply came in and doubled their number because they were getting two. They're going to have to repipe two, demolition two. So that's what they went with. There may still be some savings, but that isn't transparent to us right now.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Questions? Any questions from
Yeah, I had raised this at the last meeting. I found it counterintuitive that there wouldn't be some amount of savings from having to dispatch crews and equipment a second time. But if that's their answer, then that's their answer.
And again, there may be, and I haven't questioned the three contractors who have given us prices. I haven't questioned them about that yet. So I think when we get closer to it, we start talking to the ones we want to deal with more. There may be some savings that come out of it.
So Chuck, it would be your intention to do that then, just, as you kind of land on the final contractor, just maybe suggest that there may be some opportunities for economies. Okay.
Or
Absolutely.
same thing put differently. We've voted essentially to replace one boiler at this point. If there's of interest to them to do both boilers, then they need to provide some incentive.
Okay. We can use that strategy.
So what are you saying, Ray? So you don't want to appropriate?
Well, we've already appropriated the ARPA, or we've approved the appropriation of the ARPA funds for the first boiler, right?
No, we haven't. No, we approved Capital Investment Board move to endorse funding with the first boiler.
It's the second boiler.
The second boiler was the ARPA funds, moving it over, and we didn't want to do, and there was discussed at the last meeting and didn't want to do that until we had clarification on whether there would be any economies or opportunities to discuss economies prior to landing on it. And I guess before, and I don't know, and Chuck, you're probably more familiar with this than I am, but I would imagine that before you can really get down and negotiate with these guys, you have to have a source of funding in your pocket to discuss, correct?
Yeah. Kind of a catch-22,
Right.
If I'm ready to go, I can sit down and play hardball with them. If I'm not ready to go, it's a little bit more, I got to back off a little bit, and I can't be as aggressive
Right.
as I'd like to be.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
can I just jump in?
But I thought we had voted to endorse the use of ARPA funds for the first boiler, and we're waiting on Capital Investment Board for the second. So that's
No, it's the other way.
Back the other way.
Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in.
Yep.
The facilities director was asked to get 3 quotes for budget purposes.
Mhm.
If, once budgeting purposes and reality are often two separate things, if we have the appropriation and if there is somebody off the state bid list, he may go with them. If there's not somebody on the state bid list, then we're going to have to actually formally put this out to have a formal process because of the monetary threshold. So it's not like we can just go to the lowest quoted contractor and say, hey, can we get a buy one, get two deal here? Unfortunately, that's not the way it works under Chapter 30B and the rest of the procurement laws.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, Ray, I did go back and check the minutes, and we did vote at the last meeting. Capital Investment Board and FinCom both voted to endorse the funding of one library boiler from Capital Investment Fund or free cash.
Okay, I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention to the funding source when we voted that then, but it's in the past.
So anything else for Chuck on this before are we comfortable to move forward and make a recommendation? Or do we need him to give us anything more? Is everybody comfortable making a vote now, or do we want to wait? Because we do have one more item to discuss with Chuck before we vote. So I mean, if we want to maybe get him while he's hot, and that way he doesn't have to stick around for the whole thing. Though I'm sure he wants to, but
Well, there's been a fair amount of discussion, I think, about how this second boiler is redundant. And so I'd be, what is your opinion on whether it needs to be done, or is something that, we could confidently not purchase?
Confidently not, no. The two boilers are there because, they're each 1 million BTUs, so you got a total of 2 million BTUs. If you try to do that with one boiler, you'd have to, make a larger footprint, larger scale on your flue piping, and it would probably have to be a condenser boiler, which adds another whole set of problems with getting rid of the condensation and things like that. The staying with a two boiler scenario with 1 million BTUs each, you're able to use the existing piping, you're able to use the existing flue without having to reline it or anything. And it's just, they had two big boilers, but it's a plug and play situation. You're just going to pop these in and they're going to be fine. And then secondly, talking with Michael Long, the director of the library, he has a much higher comfort level with having the redundancy. If we went to a one boiler scenario, we lost it, we don't know what we'd be in for, especially, if it's in the middle of the winter when it happens.
Okay. And it sounds like your quote would not even maybe be relevant if you had to change pipes and other
yeah.
equipment to do just one boiler. Oh, okay.
Correct.
That's helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what scenario would we need to change piping? I didn't realize there was an option that would require that.
If you go to a bigger boiler, you would have to go to bigger piping in the boiler room.
Okay, I don't remember there being any conversation about going to a bigger boiler.
there
I'm sorry,
wasn't.
maybe I
Okay.
missed something from one of the meetings.
I brought it up now just because we want to know what why we would go to another redundancy again, the same situation. So that's why I brought it up.
Good.
So the
Thanks, Chuck.
reality is right now, if we replace one boiler, would still have the redundancy of the second boiler and can replace that at any point in time in the future. If there's no cost incentive, there's no driving point there to do it now, other than
That's all.
convenience factor.
Oh, it's going to cost
That's all.
more next time you do it too,
Mm-hmm.
because the price of those things are not going to go down. And they're likely to probably even go up. I mean, with all the stuff that's going on with energy conversion. I'm just thinking out loud, but you're right. It doesn't sound like there's a huge cost incentive or an incentive from the pricing, but by the same token, it's today's pricing. So
It seems like it's a smart thing to replace them both now. We do have the funds, and why there's a problem where we have the money.
okay, are we good on library boiler discussion?
Yes, do we want to vote?
Well, you know what I wanted to do to respect to Chuck's time. I just want to get him because I know there was also some questions on the heating or the HVAC units for the town hall. And I know I think Chuck, you had met with the contractors on those as well. That said they were kind of at the end of their lives.
Yeah, those are the three air handlers that are up in the ceiling in the attic space, second floor of the town hall. Those
Yep.
three are all designed the same. They all have their own separate gas burner. They have their own separate cooling coils, as well as small amount of controls. That's 3 times as much as you really need to do or really have to pay for if you went to a different system. If you went all electric, it would be a much more cost-effective scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So you think that we should not do that or just do it?
Oh, I'm in favor of doing it.
Okay.
Just the maintenance alone, that's going to come up on these as they start to break down is going to be pretty high. The cost will be high, you know, with again, the burners that are in there, the motors, the coils for the cooling system. You've got probably 9 different components where you could cut it down to about 4 or 5.
So will you be replacing these with gas units again, or will they be going to electric?
I'd say we'd go to electric. We've got a good scenario there where we could, you know, on the back side of the building, you have some space there to put in condensers and run your line sets up the side of the building and put your units right into the wall or the ceiling, for that matter, of the second floor.
And so you think, and you're confident that can be done for $50,000?
No, I haven't priced it at all.
Oh, you haven't priced it at all, so we don't even have a number on that then.
Yeah,
No.
I'm hoping, can we just get a description? What exactly is it we would be getting for the $50,000 that's budgeted? I still haven't been able to put my hands around what it is that we're talking about funding.
I believe we're talking about funding the, installation of electric, Mitsubishi Electrics or Sanyos or whatever. But again, I haven't began to price any of that stuff up.
Okay, so
Chuck had given me a number just for budget figures without talking to a contractor.
okay, so we don't know how good or bad the 50K figure is.
Well, Chuck, I guess, Chuck, what you kind of, this is just your experience. You're kind of, eyeballing it and figuring that's around what the number would be, but you really don't know exactly, right?
No, I really don't know. I'm looking at it from logistically and, the way we're moving out of fossil fuels.
Yep.
Logistically, they move, and given the age of those air handler units and all the components that are in it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would acknowledge the logic of it. I mean, it makes inherent sense. What's unclear is 50K really going to cut it? Because we're probably talking about having to rewire a base. Probably some changes in plumbing and design in the ceiling, I would guess. And our experience with the library kind of left us taken back. At least it did for me, that everything was far more expensive than we were expecting.
Yeah.
So if we approve the 50, that enables you to go and get full quotes. And then if it's more than 50, then it'll have to go back to fall town meeting.
Not necessarily. So if there's no appropriation, he can't do anything. We can't move forward whatsoever. If there's an appropriation and it's 50 is on the high side, well, then that money just returns to be reappropriated at a future town meeting. We can't expend those funds beyond their stated purpose at town meeting. But if it's a small delta, we have to obligate the remaining ARPA by the end of this year. So that would be another possible funding source.
Yep.
If it's a small delta. If it's double, perhaps not.
And if it's a small delta and you were looking to reappropriate the remaining ARPA, you would come back to us anyways, because the select board would want to know that we had looked at that, correct?
Only if it's not if it's $5,000, no, because it wouldn't arise to that capital threshold.
Okay.
If the delta is 5,000.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
No,
But if it was a $50,000 delta, yes.
Okay. So actually, what 20,000, right? Anything 20,000 and above, right? Isn't that what we're looking at?
Right, correct.
Coming back to us for another second look. Okay. Chuck, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted, from my education in this, and I've never been in the municipal government works before in the finances. If we did appropriate the 50,000 and we said we can remove 2 of the air handlers, would that be appropriate to do instead of all 3? And next year we go after the 3rd one, or those scenarios, or those those allowed?
Should we word it in such a way that it would be?
Well,
If it's generic, if to replace air handlers and not X and air handlers, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it boils down to some design considerations because, you know, the base units, these Mitsubishi, whatever, heat pumps or mini splits, whatever you want to call them, have certain BTU capacity. If we size the BTU capacity so that it could handle the needs of the building, I don't know that two heads versus 3 heads is material. And it's just a basic system design question. Pete would be great to have as part of this conversation because he's
It
worked
sounds
on
like we
it.
need to appropriate something though, in order for that work and process of the design and the everything to get started.
It does.
So I think we
You
need
could
to,
appropriate 100,000 and then we can return the remainder. We've got the money. We have the money. I'm not kidding.
All right.
and time frame on this, Chuck, sorry if I missed it. Is this you know, urgent to get the process started or something that needs to get done in the next 2 years or?
I would say in the next 2 years would be, you know, a good time frame.
So we haven't had any huge maintenance issues to date with these, or have we? With the existing
No,
equipment?
in the year I've been here, we haven't had anything that had to do with the machinery. We had one thing from our maintenance service provider that happened last year that we had to call them out on, but didn't involve mechanicals, any of the mechanicals on the existing units.
Okay. So was it the maintenance folks that alerted you to the fact that these were at the end of life, or is it just your experience?
My experience, and I did talk to one of the techs about it, and you know, they said, yeah, it still runs, but you know, it could go all at once too. So
Okay. Good. Any other questions? Get him while he's here. Good. 'Cause as much as I'm sure Chuck wants to hang in here for the rest of the meeting, and I'm sure he may just hit a weak spot on the cell in the cell range. But
I'm
right.
here.
all right, if
So-
we're
Hanging in.
if
You need
we're-
me? Yeah, more
if
than
we're
willing
all-
to help out.
Well, I appreciate Chuck. We appreciate you jumping on. This has been great. I mean, well, while we have you, I mean, is there anything else that you think that you've noticed around town that should be on our list that maybe has?
Besides the obvious,
I don't know, what's the obvious?
I mean, yeah, my office is in the DPW building next to the fire station, so those
Yep.
are too obvious. No. As far as the mechanicals go, you know,
Yeah.
no, because the DPW and the fire station are what they are. Your other buildings, you know, the police, town hall, library, senior center, they're still all in pretty good shape. So,
Okay. All right. Good.
yeah, no, at the moment, no, nothing comes to
Great.
mind.
All right.
Good.
Great. Well, thanks, and thanks. You're welcome to stay on, but don't feel like you have to either. I think we're all pretty well set, and appreciate you jumping on and
All right, thank
clarifying
you.
this stuff. All right.
Pleasure to talk. Ed.
All righty. Thanks. Take care. All right. So we'll back up to the second library boiler and vote on a reallocation of ARPA funds for the amount I believe we had for that was $33,500.
I make a motion to endorse.
All right, endorse 33.5, Mary Foley. Do we have a second?
Second.
So,
Oh boy.
All right.
We've got 3 of them.
Was that George? Gregory first?
Sure, why not?
All right, Greg, good. All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, It's probably water under the bridge, but in general sequence, I would have favored funding one under ARPA and then letting the second one slide a year or two so that we're not taking quite so much out of this year's capital. But I wasn't paying attention to the funding source in the last vote, so it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and for clarification, there, I think last week it had not been, it was not on the agenda, so that's why we could not vote it last week for the ARPA funds. So it had to be clarified on the agenda, and that's why we carried it forward to this week. But so we have one already. We approved one. Would we?
Yeah.
And we'll and we've got a motion from Mary and a second from Greg to fund this, to reallocate 33.5 in ARPA funds as the second for the second library boiler, and hope that we may get some economies, but we'll find out, and we can certainly follow up with Chuck and Mike Long at a later date. But any further discussion? Hearing none. Greg Zakarian.
Aye.
I as the finance committee only. So that's it, because you have yet to be sworn in. So, oh yeah, I need a second from the CIB, but we had that, Jason, right?
Right.
Or Cleena, either one. All right, Jason did. So Jason was CIB, Greg was finance committee. So Greg, FinCom, Jason. Brockway.
Aye.
All right, that's good. Cleena, Archibald.
Aye.
Great. Ray Bacalt.
Abstain.
Ray abstains. Okay. Mary Foley.
Aye.
All right, and Chris Berglund, aye. All right. Okay, so we were almost unanimous on that. So you abstain both at FinCom and CIB, Ray?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's be consistent.
All right. All right. Now we will look to the request for the I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. The $50,000 was on our list for town hall attic burners, which would either be the funded through capital investment fund or the free cash.
I'll make a motion as stated.
Okay, so clean out with motion to fund 50. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mary. Great. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so I just want to put out there, philosophically, the Finance Committee and the Capital Investment Board have never really wanted to consider any capital purchases without at least some demonstrated price, either via a draft quotation or some other means. It's a standard we've typically held every department to historically. Are we looking to obviate that requirement going forward?
It seems like they can't really move forward to get the price without having the money to proceed or have a budget to proceed. He said he can't really do much until he has the money available.
No, that you're, I think you're mixing the two things together. He couldn't negotiate a price for the
Right.
second
Boy-
boiler,
Right,
because he needs to have funding underneath him. But
correct.
with this, to get a quotation, he certainly doesn't need to have that. I have rather specific concerns. He by his own admission said he's not accustomed to these municipal situations, which means he probably doesn't have experience specifically with the labor law requirements. And I don't know how familiar he is or he isn't with the prevailing wage details and how that applies to a project like this. I'm not really comfortable bringing to town a project that we're basically guessing at $50,000 without any real confidence of what the real price is. And again, it sets a precedent for what level of diligence are we asking for department managers to go to before bringing something to us for a vote.
So, okay, that's well said, Ray, and I think that's you're right. I mean, that's typically the way we've operated. So, Jen, I'm gonna look to you and just say, Jen, what's the pain of waiting until a fall town meeting to bring this back with some harder numbers? If Jen's on, or Jen, are you on? Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I just went to the restroom and returned.
Oh, okay. So the concern, I don't know if you caught Ray's comments, but his comment
No.
was pertaining to funding a capital request that we really don't have hard numbers on for the specific asset, for the specific project, something we've really never done. And I think Mary was concerned that Chuck couldn't really do anything to go get those numbers until he had a funding source, which he probably doesn't need in order to get to get some kind of a plan drawn up and some real numbers. Chuck did communicate his lack of familiarity with municipal contract bidding and so forth.
Yes.
And wasn't
That's
really sure whether this would be sufficient. So I guess what would be the pain of keeping this off until like a fall town meeting and coming back with a full bid to get this replaced?
Well, I think that so it sets back the timing. Because we wouldn't be then doing the project until the spring. We're not going to do a heating
right.
project in the middle of
In
the
the
heating
winter.
season.
Yep.
So that's number one. Number two is, and I kind of want to step back and make a more general comment here, that I think that folks on the Capital Investment Board need to remember that when people are getting pricing for budgetary purposes, that's often not the price of the final unit, service, charge, whatever it is. And this is more of a general comment, just, it made me think of this with some of your discussion. When we're talking about, we got a boiler for budget purposes at 33.5, right? So going back to that, well, that hasn't gone through a procurement process. So if that boiler is 37, 38, 40,000, we're now cut ourselves short. So I think just in general, we should be adding at least a 10% contingency on top of a quote that you get for budgetary purposes.
Yep.
Because when you go through a procurement process, often if it's a competitive procurement, the prices are higher. It just is what we live in, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Jennifer, that's not uncommon. I mean, we've had that in the past. I know
Right.
with
Yeah.
DPW requests and so forth, where there
But
have
so-
been.
So that leads me to my next point, though. So if we budget very tight, you're asking what are all the negatives for if we were to put it off. So one is that then it puts it off into the spring, so it's later. It's a different. Sorry, I didn't realize my camera was off. So it puts it off into the spring. Prices could change, period, from the time of getting the quote to the spring doing the project. If there are overage, ARPA will no longer be a source to cover it. So we'd be back again. There are other sources, municipal building fund, FinCom transfer, but ARPA, just to state clearly, would be off the table by then.
Right.
But other than that, there's, and the potential just ever increasing inflation and increasing competition for other things. But do I think that we're going to be in trouble this winter if we don't do this? The answer is no.
So Ray, I guess that brings back to your comments. I think that addresses your comments from the standpoint of this is not a change in the process of the way Capital Investment Board is handling requests. I think there are circumstances here that are extenuating beyond the way we might normally handle them with, outstanding ARPA funds and so forth that might be able to go towards this asset purchase. And so I think we're, perhaps looking at this with a little more leniency than we may have with other requests. That's all. That makes sense?
Well, it addresses the specific question, but not the general one. Once we open the opportunity for, considering voting on something that we don't really have a real project scope, detailed costs and what are we doing for other people that may come in later? I mean, when Chuck mentioned that he wasn't really familiar with municipal bidding, it implies pretty clearly he doesn't know what the impact of prevailing wage would be on this kind of thing, which we know is really a pretty heavy determinant. So it makes me fundamentally uncomfortable. It's not something I think I would vote for.
Are you MCPPO certified, Ray? Because
Sorry?
none of our departments are. You're talking about something that, are you MCPPO certified? I'm just curious.
Of course not.
Okay, just checking.
So I guess from the standpoint of this, so we have a motion and a second to move forward with 50,000 towards the acquisition of attic burners. As far as the scope, Ray, we can scope it as replacing all three, a project that would be sufficient to replace all three of the existing units in the attic. And I think that's what was brought to us initially. And I think that's, and I guess from the standpoint of Mary's motion, I would imagine that that's what the motion is intended to do. It should be an all-in deal to do all three of the units.
It was my motion. I think
Oh, I'm sorry.
that makes sense.
Oh, Clean, I'm sorry, it's yours.
Yeah,
Go
we
ahead.
had talked, it had briefly come up, do we make the motion vague so that if we could for the money replace 2 instead of 3? But to Ray's point, I think it's more transparent to the town. If we make the motion for the 3, if the bids come back so high that there isn't enough funds from ARPA or other sources to make the difference, then it would have to go back to town meeting. That's probably the most transparent way to do it. It feels like to me. I'm still comfortable voting yes on this now. Because for me, I think it's a really high priority to maintain the buildings that we have and the grounds that we have now. That's just a big priority for me. So I would rather do it now than wait 2 years if that's when our local expert says that we should do it.
Thank you. And I will remind everyone that we did have an incident at the town hall where one of those units malfunctioned. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but I believe that's what caused some flooding in the attic. I believe it was from
there was but that's what he was talking about, was the maintenance issue.
Yeah.
More than a mechanical issue. I'm getting called down to the bylaws committee, so
Okay.
okay, I'm gonna run down.
All right, thanks. So there are there have been some challenges. That's all.
Endorsing it because we have the money now. We have ARPA to make up the difference, and you don't know what's coming down the road, what's going to break next and things. I just think not delay it while we have the ARPA to make up the difference.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ray Burkhalter, how do you vote?
Nay.
Both Finance Committee and Capital Investment Board. Greg Zakarian.
I will vote yay for FinCom because I'm not sworn in on CIB yet.
Okay, thanks. Cleena Archibald.
Aye.
All right, Jason Brockway.
Aye.
Mary Foley.
Bye.
All right, and Chris Berglund, aye, in the spirit of trying to get to unanimity. Trying to, but we almost made it, but that's fine. It's everybody cast their vote. Okay, thank you. A lot of good questions, a lot of business, and that's well done. So now we will move on to
Chris, Chair, if I could,
yep.
The question I brought up earlier about the vote for the auditorium for the NALT study, I went through like back to early March and it's not recorded in the minutes. I thought we had voted, but even if we did, it's not in the minutes, so we probably do need to vote on that. But on a different day, because it's not on the agenda for today.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll I don't know. Yeah, it's really not on the agenda. So I'm like, and I know that the challenge I'm up against is I know that the select board wants our votes on our recommendations on capital tomorrow. So it's that's a little bit of a. So what we can do is, I guess, clarify where we are with reallocating ARPA funds on NALT because we thought that that had been done, and I guess that would be we'll find out if it's allowable or not. It may or may not be, but I'll put it out there, and if you want to make a motion to reallocate ARPA funds to that NALT consulting study as guided by the school, we can make a record of it. If the town clerk throws it out, then she throws it out and we'll have to revote it. But I'll have that discussion with her tomorrow. Does that make sense? Or
So we can make a motion to record a vote that was previously taken but not recorded to allocate ARPA funds for the planning and estimation of the handicap pad at the school.
great. Do I have a second? All right. Who was that, Ray?
Yeah.
Thanks, Ray. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Let's see. Greg Zakarian, how do you vote?
Aye.
FinCom, aye. All right. Kalina Archibald.
Aye.
Jason Brockway.
Aye.
Mary Foley.
Aye.
Great. And Chris Berglund, aye. That's it, right? I think I got everybody. Yes. Oh man. Great. Thanks. We'll see how that flies, but thanks, Clean. I think we should be okay with that, but because we've talked about it enough. And, it's been out there. All right. Do we want to go to actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip down before we go to the working group and that stuff, but because I just want to clear up. Tomorrow evening, we have a joint meeting with the select board to go over the warrant and so forth. Are there any, is there any interest, because my understanding from the town administrator is that we will have in present many of the department heads at that meeting. And I don't want to confiscate the meeting or anything like that, but I guess when it comes to targeted discussion, perhaps, since we have not had all of the department heads in prior to town meeting, is there interest in discussing possibly operating budgets and impacts on future needs and so forth with some of those department heads tomorrow evening? I also don't want to put them, on the spot, but I'd like to just give them a little advance notice or have Jen give them a little advance notice that.
I have warned them all to be on the spot tomorrow for questions from either FinCom or Select Board. That is what they're there for, is to be on the spot.
Okay. So
can you clarify what you're asking here? So this is a meeting of the Board of Selectmen where they're going through the budget proposal by the town administrator. Is that right?
It's a joint meeting, isn't it?
It's a joint
Did you
meeting, the
post that
Select
something?
Board and Finance Committee, and we'll be going over the This is the meeting, I believe, that they will be looking to endorse articles or recommend. Isn't that what they typically do?
It's possible that they do that.
Okay.
They've
And
gone
then
all sorts of out of order, so at the first meeting, they were throwing articles on the warrant, and that's usually not until 2 meetings later, so I don't know, but it's
Okay.
possible
All
that
right.
they're endorsing.
And
But
you will provide a pretty deep dive on the budget, correct?
Yes, that's what I'm working on this other screen is the final points for the override projections. So it has all the budget increases, decreases, a little bit of history, some revenue, my shocking slide that I'm not gonna reveal tonight. I wanna save it. And then how we base the override projection numbers. What those were
Okay,
based upon, sorry.
Yeah, and I guess from our standpoint, we have, again, we're not weighing in on the budgets that have been presented by those specific departments. We may have questions on future staffing needs, on, what's what might be down the road as far as, additional enhancements. But what they see, what they may or may not see. So I guess I would just hopefully that will be sufficient. Tomorrow will be a sufficient time for everybody to, if they have questions on that, to present those, since we'll have a fairly captive audience. Does that make sense? Ray, you good with
I
that? I mean,
think
hopefully.
so.
Well,
Rena, you good?
I admittedly I've had some crazy busy days the past few days, so I haven't kept up with the communications. I just wanted to kind of get a Reader's Digest version of the primary and secondary goals for the meeting.
Yeah, that's probably that's it. So it's going to be going over the warrant and a deeper dive on the budget, and there will be the presence of department heads there. So if we have any specific questions on department operating budget, that will be the time.
Okay.
And hopefully, and the select board will grant us that time, right, Jennifer?
Yes, yeah, so
Yeah,
it's a joint
okay.
meeting, so it's both of you are actively in the meeting, so
And
both groups.
and they'll be
So,
asking the
I
questions as
guess,
well.
you know, if you all, some department heads perhaps that have bigger budgets, you might want to have a deeper dive with before you make final recommendations to town meeting.
Mhm.
So if you could kind of listen for that so that you can let the chair know and I can coordinate those department heads for maybe next week. But if there's, department heads that you don't typically bring in one-on-one, town clerk, treasurer collector, but you have questions, great, let's get them out. And then also for those department heads that do have the bigger budgets, I think, more people just are likely to be tuning in to the select board meetings than finance committee. So it's a good opportunity for them to, no offense.
Yeah,
but
no,
it's a
good.
good
Yeah,
opportunity for them
I'm
to
shocked.
no offense taken, trust me.
talk to folks, and talk to folks in the public about, what the future holds here.
That makes total sense. Thank you. All right, we're good on that. I guess we're good on that. All right, so if we are, we'll move on or move back to the fifth item on the agenda, the working group product. So to date, and thanks everybody. I know everybody's had a lot to share as far as this stuff goes, and there's still a lot of sharing going on as we try to drive this home. And Jen, I think some of your information that you provide tomorrow will be helpful in rounding this piece out, but or more than rounding it, and not to mention information from the schools, because I'm still light on the information from their outside or additional funding sources. And I reached out to
Can
Rich again
you-
today.
Can you CC me on a follow-up to him if you don't get that by the end of tomorrow, Chris?
I will. Yep, I will. Yeah, I sent him another today, so it was and he responded. So he's still asking me, when do we
Okay.
need it by? And I'm like, yeah.
A month ago.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we're moving, but anyways, so that's obviously a piece for us. I mean, I think Jason Kleena Greg, Ray, I mean, thanks so much. Mary too. I mean, for all the work, and I know Pete at the last meeting was, instrumental in bringing up some stuff. And as far as, presentation, we have a lot of information out there. I'm not sure it's all going to be digested, but we can at least, scream through some of the slides and just see what everybody's really thinking, because I know I uploaded some other stuff, some other graphs that included, I know Jason, I think it was you that brought up the question about commercial versus residential properties in the let me see if I can.
That wasn't me, but I'll be happy to take credit if nobody else
Oh,
will.
was it? Maybe it was Cleena. That maybe it was Cleena. I don't know. It could have been Pete. I don't know. Well, maybe I imagined it. I don't know. but I did do just a quick. I went out and downloaded. Hopefully, I don't know if everybody can see this or not. I don't know what you guys are. Are you guys looking at screen two? Uh-oh.
You could share your screen.
Did I not share it?
Not
Maybe I
worried.
haven't shared it yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Is that shared now?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so now you see. Okay, so this is basically a table that I downloaded from the state website, which is basically I just pulled up Boylston, Shrewsbury, Sterling, and West Boylston in an effort to show residential levy, commercial levy, industrial levy, personal property, and the total, and basically what it comes out to. And it's kind of a scary looking thing, and really doesn't show us a whole heck of a lot when you graph it out, other than the fact that our residential component actually went down over the last 4 years, whereas others have actually increased. I think the only other one that went down with us was Sterling. But all the others, I'm sorry, Boylston went down substantially, because Boylston, I think, added a lot of commercial in the last few years. But actually, I was hoping to show Shrewsbury as, going up, with a lot of commercial, and it's really not. I mean, there's more residential, but when you think about the
They
apartments.
have a split rate.
Oh, is that what it is?
They have a
Okay.
split tax rate, yeah.
So that would make that difference, and I'm sure that a lot of the condos and apartments and so forth will probably fall into that residential piece, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I didn't do that deep of a dive, but it was pretty telling. I mean, you can see Shrewsbury at 88, 89% of their levy is residential. We're down at 83, but that's just one thing. So anyways, I won't. I'm not gonna.
I
Go
pulled
ahead.
down the tax rates by class for
You
the
did,
entire
yeah.
state, and it's like the state averages, they're higher for commercial and industrial, but I think if we look at neighboring towns, it tends to be the same residential versus commercial. So
Yeah, and I
it's not
did
like we
pull.
have huge multinational companies in our town. So
No, and I did pull in. Jen sent me over this property tax comparison data, which is another. I think this is another DLS resource, but basically
It is.
shows us where we are just for 1 year as to some of our neighbors. And while we're not the highest single family tax bill as a percentage of, we are the highest as a percentage of value. We're not the highest as a percentage of value. We're second highest. I think Paxton is the highest, and we're tied with Rutland for second. But one of the things we are very high on is average tax bill as a percentage of income. So I don't know that this is something we want to be front and center in our presentation, but again, I will coordinate. Go ahead.
I was struggling with that too, because the source on that final column as a percentage of income, that's from the Department of Revenue.
Yeah.
And so they're pulling that from, it's not necessarily related to only property owners. So I wonder, based on
Oh.
some of these towns,
Mm.
if that is from some of our rental properties, where some of these towns have high rentals, but some of them don't have rentals really at all. And so I
Right.
don't know if that's skewing that number, that 17.56%, but that jumped right off the page as me as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's just something up to. I think again, we can go back. We can go slide by slide. I'm jumping around, and I don't mean to do that. But next few years be different than the last few. I mean, I think these are just kind of leading up to our message. Now, are we still, Jen? I mean, after all is said and done with you and the schools and everything, is it still? I think we're still comfortable that it's a $1.5 million structural operating deficit. In
I thought
2025.
this would be reduced to 1.3 based on Jen finding a way to close that 200K gap that she had. Do I misinterpret that?
I don't know.
I'm just muted, sorry. Yeah, so I have, if the school has the structural deficit of 1 million flat,
Yep.
then this should be 1.3.
1.3. Because you're just, the only thing you're looking at then is just the free cash component that we look to, the 1% year over
Yes.
year. Okay.
Yes, preview, that's my shocking slide for tomorrow.
That's the shocking one. All right.
Mhm.
Oh, yes,
We'll pretend to be shocked.
21-year analysis. How much money in 21 years, I'm gonna leave it there, has gone into the budget from free cash.
From free cash, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's a
You're
good
not
one.
gonna like the number,
Well, it's 6.4 million, give or take, right?
more than that.
Really?
So I put this slide together trying to sort of capture the main messages and what we're gonna cover. It'd probably be
Yep.
good to spend a few minutes here and make sure that it's what we want to cover.
I think this is a great slide, actually, but preview options. I mean, I think that's the key. And that's one of the things, I don't know if anybody was watched the select board meeting. And I don't know, Jen, if I was out of order last night, but I just said that the intention of our presentation is not to do a deep dive on a Proposition 2.5 override. Our intention is to provide a kind of a historical ramp up as to how we got to where we are today. And
I think that that's absolutely accurate, everything I've heard from you say so far in your meetings, and that what I've been trying to convey out. I will say, however, in the misinformation train that's going right now on social media, I don't know that that's what the public expectation is of May 13th.
okay. So just wear your Kevlar jackets on.
So
first
all the
Exactly.
better reason to have the slide up front. If this isn't why you came tonight.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
can-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go home now.
On this slide, the last line I think belongs elsewhere. I would divide the next to last bullet down into line 1 is Proposition 2.5 operating override, and the second bullet reduction in services, programs, or personnel.
So my thinking, I could go either way, but my thinking was just that we're previewing the options, which are Proposition 2.5 or the reduction in services. And there is a town meeting and town election voting that's going to come up. So it's like, these are the next steps essentially. But I can see your point that might be less confusing the way you said.
And
So options moving forward. So maybe would you guys be more comfortable if we did like another bullet with reduction in services?
well, I'd say services, personnel, or programs, and or programs. I think that the town needs to understand that it's, there's different ways to get there, but none of them are appealing.
We can clean that up, but that looks good. We'll leave that. All right. And this was, I'll put a question mark on this just because I'm not sure how that might be used or not used. It's good.
Yeah,
It's
that would be my real question. What will be the talking point for this slide?
Well, it just shows that we're, not the highest in the, in our neighborhood. We're really, really close, I think, to some of the other, as far as a single family tax bill for the average house. We're not at the highest in the area. We're well below, actually. I think we're the fourth one, well down from the top. We're, fourth lowest average single family tax bill. So I think that's where I would focus on this data.
That's
I think there's just one other thing to draw out here. I saw some comments that people were saying, oh, our taxes are much higher than Watertown and Newton, and we don't even have anywhere near the services, because it's just to remind people that the tax rate is multiplied by the assessed value to come up with the
Right.
tax bill.
Right.
So some people are still looking only at the rate where they should be looking at the bill.
Correct.
Mm.
Correct. I don't know who did this, but I like this one. Was this Kalina?
Mm.
Yeah.
just trying to put something simple to like get it started, sort of what we're gonna talk through.
Right.
And the reds are, programs and services have been flattish overall, right? Mandates from particularly the school. So that was one thing I wondered if it should say mandates or if it should say education, including mandates, or just education. But those expenses have been going up, insurance and retirement up, inflation up, taxation has been flat for us, our state funding has gone down, and the one-time funds are no longer there.
Yeah, Clint, I like this, first of all, but I think mandates should stay general. I don't, there are mandates associated with other things that affect town hall and building access and that sort of thing, that I'm wary of making this point too much at an educational issue, which people are already going to be sensitive to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the schools will be there if they want to speak to that. I think that would be great. And Jen, you'll be there. You can certainly speak to the town side. So I think this is good, though. Very good. And this is just a basic breakdown of our funding for 2025, basically with a little explanation. Now, one of the things I think we should talk about as a group too, do we want to have handouts of all these wonderful slides, like maybe 3 to a page, so people can take them and go home and study them and come back, or just
That or selected slides. Some of the graphs might be better as a full page if we just pulled out certain slides.
yeah. And Jen, I think it was your intention to put some of this out on the town website after the event.
After the fact. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll
So
be
maybe-
putting my budget presentation out after tomorrow night.
Okay, so maybe I think this is a good explanation of what goes on. Thanks. I think that was Ray. Thank you.
And have any of the budget figures changed? Do we need to update the slide at all?
Okay, this is
funding. I'm
revenues,
sorry. Yes,
revenues.
funding. I'm sorry. And this is growth of funding sources. This is all funding sources. Budget growth. We're still looking at 30,024,607.
Sounds right. I'm number fatigued. Hold on.
I'm sure you are. Well, anyway, so I mean, we can
Well,
certainly
we can.
we'll cross check.
30,051,607.
Okay, so we got another.
And I'll probably change this one into a single graph with the budget and the inflation side by side in a clustered bar.
Okay.
Mm.
The budget and the inflation side by side.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to leave, but it looks really good. Okay?
All right, Mary, thanks for your help. We'll see you.
See
We'll see you tomorrow night. All right.
Yes. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, either the budget and the inflation on opposite axes, Ray, or we could do the percent increase, so they're not different axes.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're saying, but we can take a look at it when you get something together.
Okay, and how do we get here? Structural deficit. So this is where we have the 1.3, right?
Yeah.
Schools flat. No inflationary increase. It's essentially 3% decrease. Balancing mechanism. So this is where we're really relying on some of the stuff from schools to support this, because if I don't have it, I don't know, we're gonna have to work with, something else, because otherwise it's just hearsay, and I'm not really comfortable putting that on a slide. Free cash, like that, historical overrides. I'm sure this will generate a lot of attention.
Should
I mean,
we tie this, how did we get here? Back to the scales slide? Like go into each of those blocks
here,
in detail? Or not in detail, but to the level that's on that other slide.
Well, I think we do after this, don't we? Because we get into some specifics. And then we get into the, well, I thought there was, this is still, these are placeholders for the schools if they ever come, when we get it. And this is the 10-year budget growth. I'm just sorry, I'm jumping through. I thought we had something. Were you talking about something like this? Growth rate? I mean, this is a little bit deceiving because, culture and recreation dollar-wise, 50%, it looks like a lot, but it's not a huge, as opposed to employee bit. All right, I think so.
I think the free cash is going to, I don't know, maybe that gets its own slide. I think it's just a term that doesn't mean much unless you've been a town administrator. Like knowing what it is tricky, I think.
Well, we have a slide with definitions, so we can try to cover it there.
Do we?
We do.
Well,
right up front.
difference between funds authorized for FY24 and actually encumbered then allocated.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
And we can take some time on a couple of these lines that are more cogent than others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually free cash is, not just that 1 year. I mean, it's kind of a revolving fund that keeps moving, depending upon how much we choose to use year over year. Contributors to the stress on the operating budget. State aid, Prop 2.5. The restructuring. School choice, I might even put in here, school choice, ESSER, and,
Sorry, what's ESSER?
ESSER was the equivalent of ARPA
Oh,
for the schools. But it's we're gonna have to get that clarified. That's all I can say.
For me, slides on 11 and 12 seem similar, and they're like schools are on both. I can't quite figure out what the difference is between the two slides, or like why something is on slide 12 instead of 11 or vice versa. Like there isn't an organization to me there that I can pick out easily.
Okay, so let's see. I'm just gonna put in some notes here. And we'll take another look at this.
Are we
So-
trying to say that like these are the biggest drivers on slide 11 and then slide 12 are additional contributing causes?
yeah, I think the intention of slide 11 was to be the generalities and 12 was to be examples. That may have strayed over time.
Okay.
Multiple chefs in the kitchen can cause a little distortion.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right, well, we'll leave
Good
that
to-
note on there and try to get that clarified then. That'll be good. Yeah, because they are kind of similar.
They are.
in ways. And then Jen will give us this one next when her slides are all so we can have a nice pie graph on there for the operating budget of 30 million.
That one's done. You can have that one. You can have all of them in about a half an hour.
That's no, I'm not going to be doing this in a half an hour. I got to tell you. I tried to put together a line graph on residential tax burden last night at 7:30, and I won't even tell you what I came out with. So, but
Yeah,
it was-
sundowning is a killer.
yeah, it didn't work. So there's the budget. Again, waiting for all this stuff on circuit breaker. Schools, because that'll be really nice to have a little graph just showing how their balances. Hopefully their balances. If it doesn't, then obviously this is out. But it'll change a little bit. But I'm sure it has. And this is kind of conclusion. I guess growth of expenses. I don't know. Do we? I mean, do we want to leave this in? Probably. I mean, it does show how our employee benefit has gone up considerably graphically. It's just, it's a small graph. I don't know if we could make it bigger. I think it does
It's-
kind of,
In Excel, it's hard to reorganize the legend in such a way that it takes up less
Yeah.
space.
yeah.
But I haven't really poked at it too hard yet.
But it does, the numerics are there, and I think that's what can be spoken to, because that's fairly significant, and maybe, and you do have the percentages up here, so I don't know if we want to, kind of put those more together. Where did we have or maybe I'm
It could have
going
gone
the
down a
wrong
little further.
Sorry, I went the wrong way. Yeah, so this has the percentages of growth.
One more.
One more. Okay. There
So
we go.
this gives kind of the head-to-head comparisons graphically. But this is I was looking at this one. It's a little bit of a dangerous slide because unless you know the total story, it is lying. It would suggest that the school's budget has gone down. This is the allocated portion of town contribution
Yeah.
to the budget.
Right.
So we either need to couch this in words so that's clear, as I think it distorts reality, but there's an important message in there. The reality is the town is supporting less of the school's budget than it has in the past because it has gone down, but the school's budget hasn't gone down, it's gone up.
Right.
So we need to figure out how we're going to get that message across.
Right.
Well, I think a big piece of this is this little area right here,
Right.
with just, you know, employee benefits and risk management, you know, is 5% of the budget, up 5% in 10 years. It's, you know, that's huge. And I know the schools are part of that too, because I mean, I think their benefit costs are included in that, but that's,
And that's actually lowballing it because, you know, the other post-employment benefits are a contributor here that's not really recognized.
yep. Correct.
Who set
Um,
our tax rate? Sorry, it's like a really elementary question, but is that a select board decision? The tax rate?
So, so it's math. But a lot of people do think that the rate is set by the select board. The select board makes the decision whether or not to split the rate, meaning, so right now we have a single tax rate. So the tax rate is evenly applied across commercial, industrial, and
personal
residential
property,
properties.
yeah.
So that's the only decision there is to make based on what the options are. And sorry, I'm kind of thinking of two things at once, sorry. But the tax rate itself is based on the prior year's tax rate, the total assessed values of the home, and it's just for homes and it's a formula.
Because I noticed
So
that
if assessed values, whatever assessed values go up, the tax rate comes down. When assessed values go down, the tax rate goes up.
Goes up.
I see. So just to match,
It's
but to match to what? To match
2.5%,
the
2.5%. You want the
two and a half
levy to,
percent of
yep,
the prior year. Yeah.
yep, the levy's going up 2.5% regardless, and it's just a matter of matching the valuation with the appropriate dollar amount on each property.
Okay.
Okay, so that's, I mean, so we have 18 so far. We don't have any agendas yet. And we have other things down here that are just kind of placeholders, but that's really it. So the 18 is more, I think more than enough. We'll, I think, fill this in with some 2.5 stuff as well as some school. I mean, I'd like to have at least one slide on the schools just to show where they've pirated or had to pirate funds over
Should
the
we look
years.
at the summary slides towards the end?
I think that would be, yeah, just a one slide, because I don't think we want to do too much, and maybe just summarize
There's
perhaps.
some in there though, I think if you just scroll down. Because there was the slides about the options, right? So there's a
Right.
there's belt tightening option, prop 2.5 override, and
Right.
then this what summary is like.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
this includes
we got to get something in there with specific numbers on tax rate increases for the average family if the override budget is approved.
You can grab those, right? I have those on the Prop 2.5 Q&A page on the website. You can just grab them and copy paste those graphics.
okay, good.
And Chris, you were talking about. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I have two. So I have one for the impact for FY25 with an additional 600,000, and then I have one for the overall 4 million.
All right.
Chris, you were also talking about showing how the schools are making up for the shortfalls. We're going to do the same for the town side as well, right? We've used free cash, ARPA. I know there may be some other things in there. Ambulance receipts occasionally.
Well, you do have ambulance receipts on there. All right, let me go back. Because you had this this that shows the increases over the years.
Right.
of, not only the tax levy, but of all of the components. And I don't know if we want to show that as a percentage, but you can just see that it's not. Ambulance receipts is the one that jumps out as one of the largest. But I don't know how else we could, how else we do it, because really what we've done is it's the tax levy that we relied on.
Well, it's just,
Or you want to put it, we could put ARPA in there too, but ARPA is really, I don't know. Maybe we
Well,
just.
or from the standpoint of parallelism, if we're going to show how schools are making up their structural deficit, I think we need to do the same with the town side. And it includes some of these, but when we're talking about how that allocates across the two sides of town, I'm just trying to avoid the perception that the town's doing its part and the school isn't, or vice versa. And I just want it to be seen that all of town has to be doing things to accommodate the challenges we're up against.
So would you look at putting like an ARPA column on here, or an ARPA row on here as to what was spent in ARPA over those years? I mean, because it wasn't
No.
all for operating. I mean, so a lot of it went to capital too.
But we're just talking about how we're closing the gap. The use of elective funds really is what we're talking about. And Prop 2.5 growth is not an elective fund. Prior year tax levy base is not an electable option. But in all the general government and local receipts, it's not really an optional fill. It's just what's there as far as our baseline.
So should we be going back then to all of the town meetings for the last 5 years and looking at warrant items, warrant articles that were used to fund operating? I mean, I'm thinking OPEB, I'm thinking some of the other.
The chef.
The chef, right.
Yeah, I guess without numbers in front of me, it's all just a little bit hypothetical. I just, again, just looking for some parallelism.
Which would probably came from free cash.
Yeah, well, free cash and for the last few years, ARPA. And
Well, that's not going to be on. Yeah, that's not going to be on town meeting though. I don't know. Well, we've got what it funded. Okay, yeah, that's easy because I think we have I think Leslie or Jen, you put together I think Leslie put together an updated ARPA list.
Mhm.
We can
yeah,
get.
I'm not sure how and we'd have to look at the details of how much ambulance receipts above and beyond what gets accumulated for the ambulance purchases was allocated to just general budget, to the fire salaries, if you will.
Yeah, well, it's significant. I mean, I think that's a really good point, right? Like, it's 725,000 of their total, so 725,000 in ambulance receipts out of a total budget of, give me one sec. Fire bottom line was, scroll by it. 1.4 million. So 50% of fire is through ambulance receipts.
Yeah.
Have to kind of figure out how to put that in context, but yeah, I didn't realize it was quite that big a number, but I'm not surprised either.
Well, yeah. Without the fire EMTs and paramedics, you wouldn't have ambulance receipts. So that's an important number. So I can add that too. Okay.
The free cash is there as a line item, so is that, do we need to do the going through the town warrant? And is that how much money was?
No, that's just that was just what was appropriated towards the operating budget
From free cash?
during the year, all right, from free cash. Now there are other items that may have been, that free cash may have gone towards. For instance,
Not an operating budget then, okay.
outside the operating budget would have been approved as a separate warrant article at town meeting, whether it be spring or fall.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
mixing our scope though?
Well, they're still, they are likely, I mean, there may be some non-recurring items in there that we obviously would not necessarily include in this, because this is really looking at the operating budget. But there may be some recurring items that are in there, and I'm thinking out loud about, like, maybe, I believe OPEB was one. I mean, and well, I know that was funded through ARPA, but I think that would at times has been funded as a warrant article separate from the operating budget.
Snow and ice.
Snow and ice year after year,
Mhm.
correct. Yeah, and those are substantial numbers.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In the end, the thing I struggle with the overall presentation is how clear can we be as to why we cannot continue along the path that we have, because we've been able to make it work for the last 20 years. So we need the answer to that question to be pretty clear. If we have any expectation the town would consider funding an override.
So I think that I put out something on the website about that point, about why can't we just continue to rely on free cash, at the 1% level. I think the bigger argument to make out of it is not that whether we can or cannot use that in the operating budget, but what are we not funding because we're using that in the operating budget? Like, there's a plan to fund OPEB based on an ARPA kind of pass through, but after FY26, we have no plan to fund OPEB. That should be coming from free cash. We have all this deferred maintenance that is getting more and more difficult. That, I mean, the amount of money that we've spent in the operating budget, we could have built a building.
Yeah.
Not a big one, but a building.
Yeah, and regional services, I know there's some other regional services that we funded through ARPA out a few years. I think some other mandates that I think we may have gone out on through ARPA as well, that will come back to the operating budget. So maybe we'll look at that.
It's already long, but it is suggesting a slide of what aren't we doing now that we should be doing.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, well, I can't wait to see what Jen has too. This will be good.
I'm sending the email right now.
All right, cool.
I'm just looking for Greg's email.
All right, so we're encroaching on 7:45, so I guess I don't know. Do we want to take this offline and maybe try to put something together, whether it be working group wise or maybe I know next week I don't believe we have a meeting for next week at this time. Although
Yeah,
I put on
probably worth slating one in there somewhere.
Yeah, I put on the agenda for May 7th. Does that work for everybody? That would be
Signed up for pickleball, so I'm not loving it.
what's that? You have pickleball?
Yeah,
You're
might
too
have
young.
that's a call that I'm gonna push it out till June. I feel like it's like might have been over ambitious, but
But you need to trounce the competition and be free early enough to have a meeting.
Where are you playing, down at the courts or in the
I'm not very good. I'm taking like a series of 4 lessons down at the Route 12 pickup.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I can do the 7th, Chris.
So Cleena, you can't do the 7th?
Well, unless I reschedule it.
No, I mean, well,
Or back out. Well, like I could
Don't
do
back out.
Wednesday. People have Wednesday.
What's Wednesday the 8th look like? I could possibly do, I've got a meeting out in Holyoke
Mm.
until, but that should wrap up around 3. It's just gonna be getting back. I could probably do that. Greg, can you do the 8th?
No, the
No.
8th and the 9th, I'm actually out of commission, especially that evening and the next day. I can do Monday, Tuesday, and Friday that week. Mhm.
Jason, what are you looking like next week?
Wednesday is probably my only conflict. I have T-ball until 6:30, but I'm free after that. And every other day I'm pretty open.
Jason, you're not all the way up to regular pitching. You're still using T-ball.
Yeah, I'm struggling pretty hard, Ray.
You need
Maybe
that promotion.
clean as coach can help me out, I think.
Do you want to do the 7th clean? I don't know what time your pickleball is, but you want to do the 7th and we could maybe do
Yeah.
6:30? Is that all right?
Yeah, just do it at 6 or whatever works for the group.
Yeah, it's just I would note it's a working group meeting. We don't need to have everyone there.
Okay,
We're
fine.
gonna have a few more drafts of this before we wrap it up. So
Well, we're not going to have too many more because the meeting with the town is a week from next
Yeah.
Tuesday,
Right up.
a week from next Monday. I'm sorry. So it'll be inside of a week. So we'll clean it up, but I think it's important that we get it out there. So all right, we'll put it out there for the 7th, and if whoever can attend, that we'll try to get it as much as we can. And Clea, if you can jump on later, as you know, these things have a tendency to go a little bit. So the good news is I don't think we have any more, unless Damian browbeats me that our ARPA vote was not legal because we didn't have it on the agenda. I think Jen, you missed that, but
I can't hear anything.
okay. So if she doesn't, then we'll be all right. But otherwise, we should just be able to jump right into this, and I think that'll be the only agenda item, unless something else comes out of tomorrow night's meeting. But
And this is going to be a Zoom, Chris, or?
I think it's probably more effective as a Zoom. What do you guys think?
big time.
Yeah,
It's so much easier to just
Yeah.
fit together.
Yep.
So serial editing is going to be a nightmare.
So we'll do Zoom. That works. Anything else?
You should all have in your email now the budget presentation and latest version of the budget and revenue budget for tomorrow.
Great.
All 50 slides.
50 slides.
Yeah, I had to one up you.
So you're gonna keep
But
this.
tomorrow will be a long meeting.
It's gonna be a long meeting.
Yeah, bring lots of coffee. Oh man. Oh boy. All right. Well, we'll rest up. All right, everybody, go home, rest up early. Rest up. It's 7:43. We have some work to cut out for us before tomorrow, but
Jen, how big is your file?
It
it-
is 16,254 kilobytes.
might be too big.
16 megabytes might not make it through some of the email filters. So
I
I'm
haven't-
I wonder if I print it as a PDF.
Do you want to share it to our shared folder? Can do that. I don't know if I invited you to this one, but I can if you want.
well, Chris, is it in your inbox? Are you able to access it?
It just dropped into mine, Ray. Mhm.
Well, we just need one person to be able to pull it up onto the common drive, and then everybody gets it.
I hate the way it looks as a PDF, so I don't even want to share it. Change my font. Ugly.
Also, much harder to steal stuff from you if it's a PDF. Yeah,
Right.
it's not coming through my email.
I haven't seen it yet, but anyways,
But somebody said that they have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Greg has it.
Yeah,
So
I have it.
Greg, you can just put it up in the shared drive. That'd be great.
Did you
You
want to
wouldn't
make a
mind
new
doing it.
folder, Chris? You want me to just put it up in tonight's?
Put it up in tonight's. That's fine. I think that'd be great.
All right,
Yeah.
I will have it up there shortly.
That's good. Yeah, I don't have it yet. So, all right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Who was that? Ray moved it?
I moved.
All
Rick
right.
seconded, I
And
believe.
Greg. All right. Cleena, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right. Jason, how do you vote?
Aye.
Great. Ray, how do you vote?
Aye and goodbye.
All right. Goodbye. And Greg, how do you vote?
Aye, aye, aye.
All right, great. All right, thanks. All right, so thanks, everybody. A lot of hard work. That was good. Jennifer, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
I know
guys.
it makes for a long day,
See you
but we'll
tomorrow.
see you tomorrow night. Thanks.